who are working behind the scenes to make sure that we get all the help necessary and that our first responders get all the help that they need. From the federal perspective, I think it's important to note that the Fire Management Assistant Grant, which is the money that comes from the federal government to the state and locals, was approved. It was approved quickly, and that means that 75% of the fire suppression costs will be carried by the federal government. On that note, if in fact this fire raises to a high enough level, we could be eligible for an additional amount of money, would reduce the amount of share of cost from 25% to 10%. That requires legislation. I've already drafted that legislation. It's ready to be submitted for hearings and for a vote should that level be reached. And I feel confident that we would be successful in getting that 90% versus the 75% in federal funding. Today, I sent to the president a disaster support letter. It's bipartisan. I collected 31 bipartisan signatures, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Republican leader Kevin McCarthy. And we've asked the president to approve the governor's request for both individual and public assistance. That's important funding that we are going to need. So hopefully that will be coming soon as well. Again, thank you to everybody. Make sure that any citizens that are listening, please listen to and heed the warnings of our first responders. They tell you it's time to evacuate. Please evacuate, not only for your safety, but for the safety of others and for the safety of our first responders, who are the ones that will have to come back in and rescue you if you get in trouble. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman. And now I'd like to introduce with great pleasure my former colleague, and now our State Senator Bill Dodd. Bill? Unmute.
You'd think I'd have that down by now. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on, Supervisor. Thanks. And thanks to the county. Just listening to Congressman Thompson, we've all been together on many natural disasters before, whether they're floods or earthquakes or fires, but we've never done this during a pandemic. And I must say that the county of Napa stands tall, once again, in their outreach with their sheriff, with their OES, with the leadership on the Board of Supervisors. I really appreciate all that the county has done, during this event. And of course, we have partners in this, our Cal OES and California Highway Patrol that have been out there manning. And today we had the press conference and the governor was here. Nobody was more disappointed, frankly, than I was that we didn't have the resources on this event that we would have liked to have seen. We need to be honest, though, with people. And, the number was 367 events, fire events in the state of California 2 days ago. And according to the governor today, over 500 events in the state of California today. So I guess for our fire chief for Napa County, Jeff Bellier, what a great job that he has done. What a great job CAL FIRE has done with very, very limited resources. And I just appreciate the county's approach to this and look forward to continuing to be your partner until we're done with this and helping people wherever we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Dodd. And now I'm pleased to introduce our Assemblywoman, Cecilia Aguiar Curry. Unmute.
We know this by now. We do so many of these. First of all, I want to thank you, Supervisor Dillon, for leading the charge this evening, as well as Supervisor Pedroza. And there's always the best person there, as I got to tell you, is Molly. I always know Molly's got my back, and Molly does such a fabulous job in helping us go through these disasters. So thank you so much, Molly, for what you're doing for your community and the county. We have a lot of work to do. As we've said, and all of us have said, there's a lot to do with these fires. We were up in Lake County today. All of a sudden, a wind came up and it puts a big lump in my throat thinking, who's home, whose family could be affected? Do we have enough evacuations? How will this affect Napa County? And then you wake up and you said, it's gonna all work out. We're starting to get resources in there. And then you start thinking about all the cleanup we have to do after these fires. And we're still doing cleanup years after the fires that we've had in Napa, Lake County, throughout the district. So we have a lot of work to do, but you know what? We can all do it, everyone. We got to be strong. I want to just thank all of you, our firefighters. You know, I went into the fire station the other day and they'd been out on the fire for almost 72 hours. They looked exhausted. And I said, you need to go take a rest. Don't get hurt. And they said, this is our job. We'll do the best job ever. And I want to say our firefighters are doing a phenomenal job. So to all of the first responders that are out there, to our communities and our nonprofits that are trying to help as well, thank you so much. And we have a lot more work to do. Thank you for putting this together.
That's Molly. I'm going to say a few words and then introduce my colleague and vice chair of our board, Supervisor Pedrosa, and then we'll come back to see if Chief Ortiz is ready to go. We really appreciate the cooperation that we have had with CAL FIRE. They are in charge of this incident. The incident commander is the person with the responsibility in, I think it's 6 counties, with the bulk of the responsibility in terms of the enormity of the situation in Napa and in part in Sonoma. Yesterday, Chief Kavanaugh came to our Board of Supervisors meeting and we spent an hour talking about the big picture, the background of what the statewide situation is, the staffing is. No one staffs for an event like this, and we depend on mutual aid. So I would encourage folks to go to the recording of our meeting yesterday. We spent a full hour just with Chief Kavanaugh, and there's a lot to be learned from that hour. I have been on tours through this fire in Napa County is in my district and Supervisor Pedrosa's district, and on the eastern side of the county. And so I've had the ability to see firsthand what's being done. It's a terrific amount of work. We're appreciative that today we finally have more support. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Vice Chair Pedrosa.
Thank you, Chair Dylan. And also thanks to everyone that's on the line. To have 3 levels of government all working together shows the collaboration we have here in Napa County. And you're right, Supervisor Dillon, we've been on the front lines seeing the fire impacted areas. And for many of these families, they were impacted in 2017, and to now again have to evacuate their homes, it's tough. These are difficult times for Napa families. The devastation in areas like Berryessa Highlands, it's just very difficult to cope and to understand what those families are going through. But we do have to provide a message of hope, and we're going to be there for them. We've done that in the past. We've recovered from disasters, as Assemblymember Aguirre Curry discussed, and we're going to need all those partners at the state and federal level to make sure our families get a footing to rebuild and reinvest in their communities. But at the same time, being on the front lines, we've seen some good things. And I'll shout out to your Napa Sheriff's Department, the evacuation tags. I want to commend our residents for assisting us in having safe evacuations. Those evacuation tags that were pioneered from our Napa Sheriff's Department were in full effect this fire response. And that really aided public safety as they were doing evacuations. And let me just say, defensible space works. I had a chance to see areas that would have had more damage structurally if it wasn't for the defensible space. So while the devastation is real, and this is going to be a long road to recovery, there's some positive things we saw where people did learn from 2017. Families instituted better defensible space. And I think that's going to lead to some better outcomes. But I do want to thank Chief Bellier. He is our leader from Napa County Fire in making sure that there's a path to recovery, and to CAL FIRE. Chief Kavanaugh, thank you for understanding Napa County is our priority and trying to help Napa families. We still have a lot of work to do, and I can appreciate all the resources that you dedicated. There's resources needs throughout the state of California, but I do appreciate your commitment to Napa and the work that they were doing on the grounds from dozer lines and so forth, it was effective. So I really appreciate all the work you're doing. And again, to all the people in Napa, all the residents, we're going to be here for you. This is going to be a long-term recovery, but we're going to be there every step of the way. So again, thank you, Supervisor Dillon, for being the leader in this recovery as well. We're lucky to have you.
Thank you. And again, appreciate everyone who's been able to join us tonight, our Congressman Thompson, Senator Dodd, and Assemblymember Aguiar Curry. We really appreciate you joining us. And Molly, I'll turn it back to you.
Great, thank you. I've been joined in the room here with Chief Ortiz and Chief Bellier, so I'm going to toggle the computer a little bit so Chief Ortiz can give his update.
Thank you, Molly. Good evening, everybody. Just a quick update from the law enforcement side. Before I do that, I do want to echo everybody's appreciation of our brothers and sisters in the fire service. We appreciate and we know how hard they're all working on this very, very large incident. We have today, this evening, more than half of the county under some kind of evacuation or square footage and square mileage wise. So that's great. Really a challenge for law enforcement, but I believe we have the sufficient resources thanks to our partners. We have over 54 law enforcement officers spread throughout the county, conducting several objectives and operations. Primarily, they're protecting those properties where the people have evacuated, protecting from theft and protecting boots on the ground to identify any spot fires or any communications to our fire partners as they're spread strategically throughout the county. They're also ready in case something happens where more areas have to be evacuated. We have law enforcement assistance. We can't do it alone. It's primarily sheriff's office personnel, but we have assistance from every law enforcement agency in Napa County. So Santa Helena, Calistoga, Napa Police Departments, Probation, Napa DA's office, Napa State Hospital Police, all the agencies within our county. In addition to that, we brought in mutual aid through the state mutual aid system, and we have mutual aid from outside of Napa County. Specifically, in the last couple of days, you may notice some marked police cars from Berkeley Police Department. So a special thank you to the chief of Berkeley Police Department for his assistance. Those officers, again, are ready to conduct evacuations, ready to enforce evacuations. The California Highway Patrol is staffing road closures to effect those evacuations throughout the county. It's, as you've heard, the two districts impacted are Supervisor Pedroza and Supervisor Dillon's district. So basically the east side of the county, if you're looking at the map, starting at Vichy, everything east of Vichy, and then moving along the ridges there, Sage Canyon, Soda Canyon at Loma Vista, and then Sage Canyon, Deer Park, Angwin communities, and then up toward Calistoga, up the mountain on that east side of Silverado Trail. So there's information on our website on the specific evacuation zones, but in essence, it's the eastern part of the county. And again, I want to thank all the partners. And when we evacuate, you'll hear the high-low siren, you'll hear the PAs, you'll hear the deputies knocking on your door. We really need our community to heed those warnings and those evacuations. We have quite an amount of ambulances, fire, first responders all over the county, and it really puts everybody in danger when we have to go in there a second time when the fire is much more threatening, to remind folks that they're not supposed to be there, they're supposed to evacuate. So we really need everybody's cooperation. If you hear the high-low siren, it is time to go. So thank you to the community members that have evacuated. Thank you, Molly, for putting this together. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Chief Bellier from the County Fire Department.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your evening to join us on this Facebook Live. Just like to give a couple of updates from the county's fire department's perspective. While we certainly have historic fires burning within the county, we also still have our normal 911 call system or call demand within the county. So as I presented yesterday to the board, the 3-day period ending yesterday, we've had over 100 calls for service unrelated to the fire, medical emergencies, vehicle accidents. And so we've had to keep a strategic reserve of fire engines in some of our fire stations here in the county so that we can still meet that demand. Those paid off yesterday when we had the fire that broke out during the Board of Supervisors meeting. We were able to contain that fire at 5 acres behind the Robert Mondavi Winery. If we wouldn't have had those fire engines held back in some of our stations, we wouldn't have had that capability to contain that fire very quickly and keep it from becoming another large fire. Just this afternoon, we had a small structure fire within the town of Yountville. Again, because we had a fire, some of our resources held back at the Yountville fire station. We were able to contain that structure fire very quickly and minimize the damage. While we certainly aren't holding back all of our resources, I want to make that very clear. We're holding back the minimum amount of resources that we can to help protect the community from any new emergencies. We've sent numerous fire engines, water tenders, and a large portion of our local firefighting force to these fires starting on Monday, and they continue to be out there continuing to work to protect the communities affected by the fire. But I wanted to let the residents know that we still have kept a small strategic force of resources back to continue to handle the normal 911 call system and prevent any other fires from becoming major fires. With that, thank you for your time, and look forward to interacting with you more in the days and weeks to follow.
All right, thank you all. Like to go back to some of the questions that we've received. Incident Commander Kavanaugh, are you, just want to make sure Incident Command is available. Great, thank you. Probably many of these questions are going to be for you. There's some specific questions about certain areas of the county that maybe weren't addressed in the operational report. Are you able to give updates on specific neighborhoods or areas at this time? And don't forget to unmute.
Yeah, that is correct. I think we can get into those questions as well, but I think there's a couple of key things, if you don't mind, real quick, that I should address. And I know one of those is the evacuations and repopulations. If you don't mind for here for a second. As we start, as soon as we start evacuations, we're also looking at the repopulation. And I can say in the last 48 hours, from 48 hours ago, we have an entire group, or I should say team, that has been assembled looking on maps and putting in repopulation plans. We started those plans again today with here in Calistoga area off the Silverado Trail area. We did the evacuation the other night up into the England area, and we made the decision to let some of those orders relax down in the lower portion down here towards the valley floor. So as we do evacuations, I said, we're always looking at trying how fast we're going to be able to get the repopulation back in. Our goal, and I keep saying this, is we want to put people back in our homes as quick as possible. In the fire area where there's been damage in the fire area, we have to make sure that it is safe for the residents to return. We have to make sure there's utilities that are up and running. So as we are moving through and making sure the fire area is clean, we're also utility companies are in behind us, PG&E, AT&T, all the phones, making sure they're coming in as quickly behind us as well. And once that is all restored, we like to get people back into their homes. As I stated earlier, it's been interesting here today as we have been doing repopulation in different areas of the entire incident, but we're also doing mass evacuations in other parts of the entire complex. I know, as I keep saying, I never would want to have to be evacuated, and you don't want to be displaced out of your home. And we're working as diligently as we can, safely as we can, to put people back into their homes when we can. There's a lot of decision points that have to be made. It's always life safety. There's a lot of people that we use to make those decisions. And ultimately it comes down to when it is absolutely 100% safe to put people back into their homes and work on those plans. So, but for the community out there, let me know if you walk in, if you could just see, I'd like to take a video of a couple of the big tents we have set up. They are strictly dedicated to evacuation and repopulation. And I'd like to say to the county sheriff and to the sheriff and all the deputies, lieutenants, everybody that's been working with us from Napa County SO, from the very beginning, they have been embedded with us here, and I can't give enough gratitude to their support and help. When it comes to evacuations, it's, we're the fire side, but we have to rely on law enforcement, and it's been a tremendous working relationship, and it's going to have to continue that way. And so that support that has been given is something that we are extremely grateful for. and they have done an outstanding job. Everybody in the community here should be very proud of the Napa County Sheriff's Office.
Great, thank you. So I just want to reiterate, we're getting a lot of questions as you started to talk about repopulation, about when fill in a blank name, neighborhood or street might repopulate. Is it too soon to tell at this point?
So on some of a specific street or specific area, right tonight, I wouldn't be able to give a direct estimate right now tonight on some of those. Like I said, they're working digitally around the clock at looking at areas that are going to be safe. So I think I'll hold off on trying to pinpoint some of those. Even with Chief Brown here with operations, there are some areas that we're still actively engaged in all over. So
great. Are you able to speak to the current status of any neighborhoods? We're hearing questions about Berryessa Estates in particular, Circle Oaks, Atlas Peak, Angwin, and Deer Park. Anything you can specifically on those?
Yes, we can. And I think Nick, and I'll have Chief Brown as well help address some of those issues.
Yeah, so all the communities, neighborhoods you just spoke about are still under the mandatory evacuation order, and the fire is still currently threatening every single one you just mentioned. Firefighters are at scene in the area aggressively fighting the fire and providing structured defense.
Great, thank you. I'm going to scoot through some questions and see what else has been asked.
I may for a second while we're looking at those, I would like to say this too. As people woke up this morning and looked around, we didn't have a whole lot of smoke in the air, correct, this morning. And that goes for the entire complex, even over in Sonoma County and Lake County and everywhere else in Napa County. We had that marine layer come in. That's when we had a couple thousand acres on the entire incident last night. But I don't want that to be a false narrative. I guess it could be a false narrative. What happens is by mid-afternoon, and what we know now for the last couple of days, which we're calling the 1400 witching hours, what we're saying, the fire is standing up. After the humidities drop real low, we get heavy sunlight on. That's when the fuels are taken off. So when you wake up in the morning, it may seem like, oh, everything is good. There's not a whole lot of smoke anywhere. Just give it that 6 or 7 hours by late afternoon, and then the fires are up and standing up on us again. So I think that's important for the communities and everybody to understand, because we do every time we wake up early in the morning, we're coming in. It's like, oh, it's there's not a lot of snow, get the fires laid down to us, which is a benefit as well for everybody. Overnight, when that takes place and those communities come up, that is when a lot of work is done because the fire behavior has diminished. And so it's a two-edged sword with that as well.
Great.
Okay.
Supervisor Pedroza, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, Molly, thank you. Chief, I just want to clarify to make sure we're not creating expectations. When the question was about specific neighborhoods like Atlas Peak, Circle Oaks, and Berryessa Highlands, are we saying that there's active firefighters on the ground right now, or there's potentially equipment that was mobilized? Because I just want to make sure if someone's viewing and they're for some reason getting notice that there are no firefighters, I don't want expectations to be created. So do you mind just addressing that a little bit further?
Correct. And let me, one second, I'll turn for Chief. Operational.
Yes, so that is correct. So the firefighters are in those communities actively engaged and providing for structured defense in every community you guys just spoke about, all the way from Lake Berryessa Estates down through Pope Valley, Angwin, and Sage Canyon, Wooden Valley, Atlas Peak, and whatnot.
Okay.
All right, a couple more questions for Incident Command. We've heard you talk a little bit about limited resources, and can you expand a little bit on what you mean by limited resources and maybe why there are limited resources right now?
Absolutely, it's a great question. It's something I'm fielding and answering every single day for the last 4 days that we've been here. We're pretty much throughout Northern California, right? It's pretty much unprecedented what we have going on. The number of large fires that we have is pretty staggering. And even to us that I've been doing this for 32 fire seasons now, and it's pretty staggering the amount of large fires that we have. what that has created is that has created a tremendous strain on the firefighter and resources in the Western United States, not just in California, but just in the Western United States. To put this in perspective, I'm the incident commander for CAL FIRE Incident Team 2, which is made up of fire personnel, not only from CAL FIRE, from local government departments, from law enforcement, CHP, from all over the state of California. We have 6 of those teams. All 6 of those teams are deployed and engaged right now. We have other counties who have large fires in them, especially up in Northern California, further north of us. They have minimal engines on large incidents. That could even be what we call a type 1 incident. So we say it because we call ourselves type 1 teams. We say it's a type 1 incident. Those are very large incidents. So when you have events like this, the pool of resources becomes very, very strained. There's only so many fire engines in California. There's only so few or so many personnel. There's so many aircraft that get used. One thing that is important to understand is those resources have to be evaluated daily and shuffled around between all the incidents and what is good. So I can tell you that some incidents, and I feel very, I'll be honest with you, I feel very fortunate as it comes down through all the incidents. I can tell you that the LNU Lightning Complex right now, we are the #1 priority incident in the entire state, and we have been since Wednesday. And what that means is we get that resource pool. But if you go down to the South Bay, you go over to San Mateo, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, San Benito, Monterey, you move north up into Butte County, Tehama County, Mendocino, all those have large fires. So we're fortunate that we're doing our due diligence here as the team to make sure that we stay as a #1 priority fire. A lot of that is due to, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but it's our job to try to keep us there because it helps with resources. With that, it's important because people always talk about aircraft, the strain on the aircraft. Not only, there's only so many helicopters, fixed wing that we have. We're getting help through the National Guard, which is great. But with that is, and we saw this yesterday, when we get new incidents or new starts, we have to get on those quickly. And so if we have aircraft that are flying here, fixed wing aircraft and helicopters that are on our incident, and we have a new incident starts somewhere, those aircraft are going to be pulled to help start to try to stop that incident, which took place down here south of us here yesterday. We had to pull all the aircraft and some other equipment to put that fire out that started to the south of us here yesterday. If that fire would have got going over there, it would have, I'm not sure what we'd be doing, but that's where that resource pull and that strain is. Right now, I just heard tonight that the pilots, all the pilots that have been flying, at some point, pilots are going to have to take a rest, and that's coming as well. So it's tough. It's a tough pull, but we're doing everything we can to make sure we get all the resources here.
Great, thank you. I think Supervisor Dillon wants to weigh in on that, and then Chief Bellier as well. So,
yes, I just wanted to address and perhaps make sure that our viewers or listeners are clear about what neighborhoods Ops Chief Brown was talking about. In terms of Angwin and Deer Park, there is no active fire there now. And my understanding, especially from my tour this afternoon, is that what you're very concerned about there is that the fire that's in Pope Valley, if you're not able to do the work in Pope Valley, that it will come up the canyon there behind on the backside of Angwin so rapidly that you would not be able to evacuate people safely. But that's me talking based on what I heard, and I just would appreciate for folks if one of you wearing the uniform could clarify and or confirm that.
I'm smiling because Supervisor Dillon, I'd hire you sitting right next to me with that statement. So that was very good, and that's exactly what you just said is exactly what is going on. So that was perfect. Yep, that is correct. Currently, there is no fire in England Valley. No.
And then in terms of Circle Oaks and Atlas, I know that incredible work was done there in terms, especially with bulldozers, try to protect the top of Atlas Peak and around Circle Oaks. And again, for the reason that if that work is done on the backside, it prevents it from coming over the hill. Is that correct?
That is correct. One thing for everybody too is we're expecting a weather change, and with that weather change is the wind change that's coming starting this weekend with this southwest flow. There's also, if for people that pay attention to weather, there is the possibility, and I don't want to scare people or to say, but there's a possibility of another monsoonal moisture coming through, and that monsoonal moisture brings lightning. They're tracking that. We are preparing different plans for if we do get that change in the weather. So that's going to change how things have been moving. So here the next 24 to 48 to 72 hours, we'll see how that changes. But we are definitely gearing our operations towards those events, and we have to pre-plan for those with that wind change.
Thank you, Chief. One thing I just wanted to remind the residents of the county that while we have limited resources, Chief Kavanaugh and his team are having to constantly redirect resources to hot spots of the fire or high priority parts of the fire. So while they've done a lot of good work in Atlas Peak and Soda Canyon, and they are comfortable that area is being held right now by the work they've done, they've had to redirect some resources and maintain some flexibility so that they can work around the priorities of the fire. So I know that there's a lot of folks out there that are following social media or have online scanners, and they're reporting different things that they may have overheard or some different information they get from other individuals. I just want them to know that Chief Kavanaugh and his team are doing an extremely good job of being able to move the limited resources we have around to the priority areas of the fire to be able to do the best good for the entire fire. A 250,000 acre fire, to put it in perspective for many people, 1 acre is a football field. This fire right now is 250,000 football fields. That's a lot of ground to cover with the resources that we currently have. So I just want to touch on that little piece that Supervisor Pedroza asked earlier.
Great, thank you. Chief Kavanaugh, you addressed one of our questions about the weather change this weekend. One last question. There are many questions in the chat, and we will go back through it and see what we can answer and what has been covered. We encourage you to start over. If you started in the middle, it'll be posted on Facebook and on our county website so that you can watch this update. There's a lot of great information that those signing on midway through may have missed. Can you talk about where the containment lines are being worked on right now and where we are in terms of that progress? And then I will kick it over to Supervisor Dillon to thank everyone and wrap this up. Go ahead, Incident Commander.
Yep, correct. I'm gonna have one of the operations chief Brown kind of.
Okay, so the current containment lines that the folks are working on is everywhere south from Woodin Valley to the Solano Napa County line currently, and moving all the way up towards Yolo County and Napa County line up there in Knoxville.
Great, thank you. And we do post your maps that come from your public information office on our website daily. We usually receive them in the morning time, so we will continue to post those. And I believe those show some of the containment lines that you've worked on. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I'm going to kick it over to Supervisor Dillon to say her thanks as the chair of the Board of Supervisors and share some information with our community.
Thank you, Molly. And thank you again, everyone who's joined us this evening. This, as Molly said, will be available for viewing at your leisure tonight, tomorrow, whenever. But the information does change. We encourage you to look for the updates on our website about this information and the good information that is at the CAL FIRE website as well. And want to thank our CAL FIRE folks, our sheriff office and fire department. Again, Congressman Thompson, Senator Dodd, Assembly Member Ayer Curry, thank you for taking this hour to spend with us. We sincerely appreciate it. Happy to be joined by Supervisor Pedroza, who thanks me as well. The county has done what we usually do with these incidents of either natural disaster or other, and that is to set up a resource area for everyone who's been impacted by this event. So we have launched our virtual local assistance center. Some of you may be familiar with that. Post-earthquake, we had a actual assistance center, and now it's virtual. And so that's available through our website. All sorts of resources are available. And also at Crosswalks Church, if you've been evacuated, there are resources there for people who live in the evacuation areas. And last but not least, we're not through with this event. Weather could bring some changes that none of us want to see. And so everyone needs to be ready to go. Please visit readynapacounty.org and adhere to those evacuation notices if you receive one, and stay well.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks again, everyone. Good night.